Matt Rempe, everybody's talking about Matt, right? And 10 days ago, nobody was talking about him. But for you, what do you think he's brought to this team, other than just what we've seen him throw in the first round? Is there an energy that he's brought at a time when maybe it's good to get an energy coming to
I think for sure he brings energy. You know, he's a big guy. He skates hard. He gets in on the forecheck. He's banged a lot of bodies for us. His line on many occasions have put it behind the defense, turned pucks over, brought pucks to the net, and scored goals. You know, for the amount of time that they've gotten, they've produced a couple goals in the last couple games. And so I think that they've done a good job. And yeah, I do think that they bring energy, and Eddie brings energy, and Rempe brings energy. He's been a good mentor for those two. You know, just making sure that he's talking and communicating to them all the time. But they've had positive influences in the game.
Do you, or will you, have you had a conversation with him about fighting, the need to fight, when to fight?
We talk to our players all the time. So there's always conversations with our players. To answer your question about Rempe, yes, we always have conversations with our players, and I've had conversations with Rempe.
When the fights happen organically, they happen. But when he's in the box, it also affects your rotation. It also affects the amount of ice time he gets. So is he not a little more valuable if he can avoid being in the box 5 minutes at a time, 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think he brings value to this. I mean, as far as the bench goes, I think it's fairly easy for me to manage it. You know, our forwards are always looking for, you know, you take 12 minutes forwards and they give them 14 minutes, they're really happy about it. You take 17-minute forwards and give them 19 minutes, they're really happy about it. So I don't think covering it's a big deal, but I think from a rhythm of the game for him to get into the game, being out on the ice and just, you know, continuing to work on the game, I think that's important that he's out there and he's playing. He's not learning in the box, right? So it's more important. And he does have a positive influence in the game when he's finishing hits.
So to the lineup, it appears as though Capo was going to play with Kreider and Zibanejad. So what was the decision? You know, how did you approach it as maybe trying to strengthen that line as opposed to trying to keep together a very good third line? So taking from one to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we're coming off a loss, and inside of that loss, like you said, there was lots of, in the last few games actually, there's been lots of times for me to put different players up there. So Panarin's been up there, and Laf's taken some shifts up with those guys. Jimmy's taken shifts up with those guys. Jimmy's moved down and he's worked into Rempe's spot with Goody and Eddie, and that's been an effective line for what we're looking for out of them. You know, this is an opportunity with Capo. I think he's played well. He's generated some offense and some goals, and to move him up, it becomes a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more minutes for him. And I think he's earned a pop up there to see what he can do. He's been there before, and he's a player that has the potential and possibility of being there.
On Rempe, did you have a conversation about managing his emotions when he's receiving this much attention this early on in his career?
We have conversations with all of our players. So yes, we've had conversations with Matt.
Any sage advice you can share?
No, those conversations are between us. So.
Does tomorrow's game have a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, we hate losing, so we didn't win the game the other night, and we need to reset and go back at it. Our team's done a decent job of that. There's been lots of times this year where there was a game early on, and, where we played a team, and then we play them the next game, or 3 games later, or 4 games later, and it's a chance to go out and fix something. If you didn't like it, you can coach up that game and make adjustments, and better execution, better speed, better attitude. There's things you can do to be more successful, and so yeah, it's good we're playing them again.
This past week has been a lot of hockey, and I know you're always one game at a time, one day at a time, but it seems like this little part of the schedule, if there's 4 games in the next 14 days, and this time of year you want to ramp it up toward the playoffs, is it a good sort of break in the schedule here, or do you wish you could kind of play more games in less days?
I always find these questions to be hard to answer. first of all, the schedule is the schedule. I have no choice. I can't call them and say, listen, can we put a couple games in here just to keep us going? The schedule's the schedule. I'm sure this has happened hundreds of times, let's say 200. 100 times the team's done well, and 100 times the team probably doesn't like the way they played in that schedule. We're gonna have to figure that out. We'll have, the good part is we'll have some practices, we get to work on things, and, you know, guys get to heal up a little bit from bumps and bruises, and sometimes you lose that rhythm of the game, and nobody knows how it plays out from there. But it is what it is, and so we'll take it for what it is. We'll get some rest, we'll get some work and practice, and we'll look to come out of it the right way.
I guess also to kind of, rephrase that a bit on my end, when you're winning a lot like you guys were, all you want to do is get back to the rink, keep going, you're having so much fun, and after a loss, you're just hungry to get back in that win column. So is there any difference with that, when you're winning so much versus,
Well, we're coming off a loss right now, so I think we're hungry to get back out on the ice because we lost, not because we're winning. And so to get back out there and try to rectify that. Plus, we have a couple more games before we get into that. I feel like we have like 5 days off in the middle of a week, and so that's the schedule it is. Right now, we just got to focus. To completely ruin your thought process, we have to just focus on day to day, game to game. We got a big game tomorrow, so.
Have you ever told a player in your career not to fight?
Yeah.
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 Just time of game, situation?
Yeah, situation, time of game. I think in Carolina, I told the whole team not to fight. It was the end of the year. We're locked in for the playoffs and just didn't want to lose anybody, I think there's always situations that happen where you got to defend yourself or you got to defend your teammate, and those things happen out there. But with just a general question that you're asking me, we've definitely had those conversations.
Is there room in the game today for a guy who is primarily a fighter, or does the guy who fight have to be able to do other things, and be a real player other than?
I think that depends on what the team is, what the coach and the organization is looking for. With regard to our team, we want speed, physicality. We want to generate off the forecheck and in the offensive zone, and the players that are consuming a lot of the conversation in here, they're doing that. They're being physical, and they're bringing pucks to the net. I mean, they could have scored another goal the other night too. They brought one to the net and it was banging around. They both had a couple of chances on it, Eddie and Rempe, and so I think they're doing a good job.
Can we to circle back to the top line for a second? You've had a lot of different right wingers on that line.
Not many, not on a regular basis.
Not on a regular basis.
So when we lose a player, you're right. I'm short a player, so we've got to drift players in and out of there. But for the most part, there's been 2 or 3.
Do the guys that get to on that line, do they have to adjust their games to Chris and Nika, or do they just have to play their games?
They got to play their game and help that line be successful and contribute.